Fig Jam Cooking School is coming up. Join the waitlist at lunchladylou.com.au/figjam. Welcome back. Today's episode. Are recipes making you a worse cook? So, recipes can be wonderful. On my website, you'll find a lot of recipes. How I learned to cook, recipes. What's gotten you to this point in your cooking career, life, whatever you want to call it, recipes. But there's a problem here. When you blindly follow a recipe without ever taking into consideration things that are going on in your kitchen, how it fits into your schedule, that you have chicken legs over chicken thighs, that you don't like mince in your spaghetti bolognese and you prefer something else. When you have all these underlying niggles and preferences, it comes out as, I'm in a recipe rut. I am in a desperate recipe rut. I need you to tell me new recipes. I'm going to go into this Facebook group and ask other people for their best, quick, nutritious, healthy, doesn't take a lot of time, must feed everyone in my family. Did I mention fits into a budget, all of the criteria? And please help me because meal kits aren't working, takeaway isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working. But I kind of don't want to take any responsibility for it. I just want you, who's going to read this post, to tell me exactly what I need to do. And I'm probably going to apply the littlest effort ever and it's going to fail. But I want you to tell me what to do and I want you to fix all these issues. And the problem that I see, that I've experienced, that my clients have experienced, and that I've helped them move out of, is that recipes, my dear friend, can keep you more stuck, more stressed, more overwhelmed, more constantly searching for new recipes, new everything, new ways to do things, blah. And they keep you there, stuck. And they don't help you move forward. They're always keeping you at this middle level ground. So you've probably researched recipes. You have a list of family favorites. You might not call it that. You might not even have a name for it, but it's all the recipes that you have in your head. You might have them written down in a book. You might have them in your phone. You might just have a whole list of them bookmarked that you go to over and over again. And that's great. And it's gotten you so far. But then once you're in this point of, I'm in a recipe rut, I'm stressed, I can't cook properly, I am missing ingredients, I'm so overwhelmed, it becomes really hard to move out of that because most people don't really know how to cook. They know how to cook with the recipes that they have, but beyond that, when the ingredients change, when the season changes, when cauliflower becomes $7 a head or iceberg lettuce becomes $12 a head, they don't know what to do and they can't adapt. And that's a problem. It's a problem. So today I wanted to talk about how recipes may be making you a worse cook. And I want to start, we've been going for a while, but I just want to say this, recipes can be amazing, yeah? They can be amazing, but when they're blindly followed, it takes you out of the kitchen. And for instance, there's a lot of blogs and a lot of articles online that say how to spot a good recipe. And this is the whole thing of keeping you savvy and on your toes so you can spot a good recipe. And most likely they just want you to click on their website to find the recipes, which is fine. But they should say these things. It should say, cook your chicken on the skin side down until it's perfectly brown and crispy. Well, what's brown and crispy? And this is where the nuance comes into it. Pop the chicken in your oven at 180 degrees and cook it for 45 minutes per kilo. Okay, cool. I get my chicken out as burnt on top. Why? Wow, there's something wrong with the recipe. The recipe has led me astray. The recipe this. Don't go to that site. The recipe, there's a problem with it. I've never had any success. And sure, okay, so some people might just be slapping together recipes all over town and whatever's going on. But there's so much responsibility in your hands to make it work for you. So, for example, the eggplant dip. If you watched a few of these episodes before, you may have heard about the eggplant dip dilemma. I have a roasted eggplant dip recipe on my site, and I was Googling my business name like every good business owner does, and I came across a recipe review for my eggplant dip. And this person went into detail about how they were making the recipe, and it was well written and blah, 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 blah. But they thought that I had left out lemon. There was lemon in the recipe, but I didn't include enough lemon. If it was a tablespoon, I can't remember how much it was, it needed 2 tablespoons. And they were going to throw the whole dip out rather than add the extra tablespoon of lemon, which sounds so ridiculous to say. But this is where, and I think that recipes can get it wrong. Me holding your hand in the recipe every step of the way, okay, it can be great for education, but what it leaves out is your taste buds. Whether you like the dip saltier, whether you want it more creamier with more tahini, whether you want it just like straight up eggplant and just eggplant, whether you want more lemon, maybe you don't even want lemon, maybe you want orange or lime, depending on what you're putting this on top of. Is it like an Asian-y inspired dish? You're gonna go with lime, you're probably gonna add ginger. You might put coriander through it. Okay, if you hate coriander, just forget about that. But there are so many parts of a recipe that can be tweaked and made amazing to your taste buds that you can't always do if you're just following a recipe step by step by step by step and not paying attention. You're just looking at it and then you're going to do it. You're not paying attention to your senses at all. You don't know what you're learning because you're not learning anything. It's just this back and forth. And this is what I do. And it's like shutting your brain off and you're not present in the kitchen. You don't even get the relaxing benefits of cooking. You don't get the creative vibes going on, which creativity is a big benefit of cooking, especially if you have a job where you just like sit at a computer and you're not using that bit of your brain. We are creative beings. And if you tell me you're not creative, I will tell you that you are lying. You just haven't flexed that muscle. And the other benefit of cooking, believe it or not, is to relax. Pop the tunes on. Okay, you got a toddler screaming, something else is going on, you had a shit day, doesn't matter. It's an opportunity to relax. It's to ground back into your home. It's to do something for you, your partner, your housemates, your family, whoever it is. And then you reconnect around the dinner table, have a good chat, have a bitch about the day, talk about your boss, whatever it is. And then you get to laugh and you get to enjoy the good food that you've made. And you meant to, like, you can say like, hell yeah, I made this, whatever it is. But there are so many benefits that we don't get when we're so focused on this recipe and following the recipe step by step. So most of us, as I said before, have not really learned how to cook. We've learned via recipes. We've maybe memorized some recipes and that's it, but we have big gaps. So every recipe is made up of ingredients, and ingredients applied with second part is a method of cooking. You've got a soup, you've got a slow cook, you've got a stew, you've got searing on the stove, sauteing, blending it up, steaming, whatever it is. Method. Apply these two and you usually get the third part, which is flavor. And flavor can be via the cooking method, and it can also be via adding things: tamari, coriander, lime, butter, salt, pepper, sesame oil. I can go on. Basil, pesto, some crazy dressing. And I'll go on and on and on and on and on. So what is a recipe underneath all of that? It is someone else's opinion of how that should be cooked. For example, I catered a beautiful retreat and everyone there was a beautiful cook in their own right. I was so nervous, and I also knew these people, so I was even more nervous. But you know what I learned that day? Someone else who cooked the exact same thing that I served up She said, I learnt something that day because I wouldn't have done it like that. I would do it like this. But I loved yours because it made me think about things a bit differently and I could take it away. But then I was so intrigued going, well, how do you do it? Because I want to know how you do it. And this is the beautiful thing. Like, you are the best person to feed you and whoever lives in your home. You are the best person to bring the flavor like you like it. Because maybe you don't like coriander. Maybe you don't like peanuts. Maybe you don't like goat's milk or goat's cheese. There are so many things that you don't like that I love, and vice versa. So if you're constantly looking for recipes, oh, it has zucchini in it. It has goat's cheese in it. Oh, it has this in it. And you can't figure out how to adapt that to make it work for you, you are losing out big time. Following a recipe, it slows you down so much. First of all, you need to find recipes. You need to constantly be finding new recipes. You need to store the recipes. You then need to get the ingredients for the recipes. And okay, the benefit for that is you're buying exactly what you need in that recipe, you're bringing it home and you're going to use it. If you follow that process, that's what's going to happen. But what if you forget an ingredient? What if it's out of season? What if it's a beautiful pesto pasta with all of these juicy, fresh summer tomatoes, but it's dead middle of winter? You might go find it anyway, but you know what? It's going to cost you a lot more. So what could you make in winter that's that kind of pasta? Well, you might use some, I have a mental blank over all winter vegetables right now, and I think it's because we're just coming into spring, we're almost at summer. I'm like, winter is so dead to me. But, terrible example, Lou. Do you get what I'm saying? How can you adapt? And so most people, they search for the recipes. Then they need to find a trustworthy recipe. Then they're going to buy the ingredients. Then they're going to make it. And while they're making it, they realize they've forgotten an ingredient. And then they freak out. What do? Oh my God, I bought chicken wings instead of chicken legs. How do I adapt? How long do chicken wings take in the oven compared to chicken legs? And this is just an example. There are so many more examples of that. So what I believe and what I see and what I've done and how I've catered for hundreds of people per week, all on my own, is I hacked the recipe system and I created foundations. Well, I figured out that there are foundational themes, foundational methods underpinning each recipe. And if you break it down to the foundational method, oh my gosh, cooking is free, cooking is fun, cooking is relaxing, cooking is creative. And of course, there's still elements for where you could stuff it up, but this is where things become different because you're learning about the seasons, you learn about how ingredients work. Frying up potatoes in a pan, like diced potatoes, makes awesome crunchy chips. You can also do that with sweet potatoes, but you can also burn them a little bit easier because the sugar content is higher. So that's just something that I learned many, many years ago when I was recreating one of my mum's recipes. But you know what? I probably wouldn't have gotten that from reading a recipe. I had to get in the kitchen and stuff it up and make it and then fix it. And following a recipe, you are so scared of stuffing it up because it feels like, oh, how could I be so stupid either to follow this recipe that's led me astray, or how could I be so stupid that so many people are having success with this recipe and I've stuffed it up because I'm just a shit cook, or whatever version of the story you're telling yourself. And so you stay stuck in this spot because you don't want to move, but cooking without a recipe, it almost obliterates that because you become so much more nimble to creating awesome food on the spot with what's in your pantry, with what's in your fridge, with what's in your freezer, with what's in your fruit bowl. And it's like this little mini mission to make it as simple as possible and as flavorful as possible. So back to those foundational methods, got to get the name right on that. But you have a soup, you have a stew, you have a dip, you have a dressing, you have a pasta bakey kind of thing. Underneath all of those is a method. It's like a framework, and I don't really like that word framework, but it's something that you can work off, that then it just goes in the direction that you want it to go. So I want to go into a few pros and cons of recipes. Well, actually, let's start with a story. I have a Thermomix, the brand new one, TM6. It's amazing. It has a guided recipe function. Thought I'd never use it. I love it. But I don't cook meals in my Thermi, like rarely, maybe on 2 hands. That's how many meals I've cooked on it in a year. But what I use it to do is be the extra pair of hands in the kitchen. I need the sourdough. I need the pizza dough. I make flatbreads. I caramelize my onions every week. I make porridge in big batches. I caramelize carrots or something like that. I can steam my veggies. And what I love about that is that it's out of the way. The Thermi is on. It's got it under control. I don't need to watch the gas stove. I don't need to worry about little toddler hands reaching up and touching all the knobs. And I can chop veggies for the week. I can make a cake with the toddler. I can go outside. I can come back in. I can do whatever I want. I can be doing other cooking things, right? But this one morning, I didn't want to turn the Wi-Fi on. And so I'd been following just the guided recipe process of making porridge. And I have porridge recipes on my website. I have one that's in Vogue. I have porridge recipes, but I'd just been blindly following this one, pressing the buttons, next step, next step, next step, following this recipe. And I got to this Wi-Fi-less morning where I didn't want to turn it on. Maybe we had no power. I can't remember why. Or I was locked out of my account. It was something like that. So I couldn't get in to access this recipe. And I drew a blank. Thought, oh my God, how do I make this? And I was laughing at myself thinking, it's a 2-ingredient thing. I know it's oats and I know it's water, but I don't remember the ratios. I can't remember anything right now. What am I going to do? And I laughed at myself in that moment thinking, oh my God, I've been taken for a ride, a recipe ride, and I've come out worse from this. And you could say, look on the back of the packet, Lou, but I don't have a packet because it's just in my jars. So what did I do? Well, I laughed. And then I also remembered in that moment, another time, the day I got my Thermomix and I used the guided recipe function for the first time. And I messaged my friend and said, oh my God, this guided recipe function is going to save so many households around the world. So much heartache and so much pain. And it's also going to potentially decimate people's skills all over the world because they're just stuck in the recipe of following step by step. I love Thermomix. I love the guided recipe function. I love recipes. I create recipes. I have them on my website. Some might be going soon because I don't think that they're all doing you any good, which is another story for another day. But they need to work together. And putting your full reliance on a recipe and being in this stressed and this looking for one and a recipe run and all of these things, if it's feeling like that, I'm going to say something's got to change and something can change. And it might be learning how to ditch a recipe, learning how to freestyle a little bit, learning the how and the why behind the recipe that you're working with. So even then you can be like, oh, I understand, we're putting this chicken in, we're going to put the chicken skin side down, and the aim of the game here is to get that skin nice and crispy. And then I've got a crispy skin, and then I can pop it in the oven, and then it's going to cook the meat. It's thinking those things that aren't always written in recipes, and they don't have to be. So a recipe, you might think it throws you under the bus, but when it gets it wrong, when you get it wrong, when it's wrong, whatever way you want to look at it. But your oven might run hotter. Your oven might run cooler. You might have amazing conductive pans that heat a pan so much that you never even need to put it on a medium heat. And if you have it on a low heat for too long, it's like a super hot heat. You might have pans that are so crap, they don't conduct heat at all, which means if you have it on a medium, it's really a low, which means a recipe is going to be wrong for you. You probably might need to crank it up to a high to then have it at a medium. Does this make sense? I hope so, because there are so many nuances within the kitchen and within ingredients that can stuff up a recipe without it being you or me and your skills and this and that and blah, blah, blah. It might just be that your oven runs hot. And that comes back to you to adapt the recipe. And this is why I really believe that we all need to be able to freestyle and ditch a recipe a little bit more. This is the end of our recipes making you a worse cook. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Fig Jam Cooking School is coming up. Join the waitlist at lunchladielou.com.au/figjam.